Stop before you spend another old penny. You need to watch this. What if one ordinary-looking wheat penny hiding in your pocket, your coin jar, or an old family collection could make collectors stop in their tracks? Today, we're revealing 6 incredible wheat pennies that most people would ignore, but each one has a fascinating story and remarkable collector interest. And trust me, the final coin shocked even experienced collectors. So don't skip a single second, because the next old penny you find might deserve a much closer look than you ever imagined. Coin number 1. Take a careful look at this 1958 with D. Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than an old 1-cent coin with a warm brown color and a clean design. Thousands of people have seen coins just like this and never given them a second thought. Some have been tossed into change jars, others forgotten inside drawers, and countless more have disappeared into everyday transactions. Yet that ordinary appearance is exactly what makes this coin so fascinating to collectors. Now pause for a moment. Imagine opening an old family coin box that hasn't been touched in decades. Among dozens of ordinary pennies sits a single 1958 with D wheat penny, quietly waiting for someone to notice it. For years, it remained hidden, carrying a story from the final chapter of one of America's most beloved coin designs. That simple discovery is enough to make experienced collectors stop and take a closer look. The year 1958 holds a very special place in American coin history because it marked the final year of the famous Lincoln wheat penny design before the U.S. Mint introduced the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. That means every genuine 1958 wheat penny represents the closing page of an era that lasted nearly half a century. For many collectors, owning a beautiful example from this historic final year is like owning the last edition of a legendary book. Looking closely at the coin in your images, the surfaces display a pleasing brown color that has developed naturally over time. The design remains attractive, with Lincoln's portrait showing strong detail and the lettering appearing crisp. The wheat ears on the reverse are well defined, adding to the coin's eye appeal. Based on these photos alone, the coin appears to have an attractive appearance, though an exact grade cannot be confirmed from images alone. Then there's the small D mint mark beneath the date. That tiny letter tells us the coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the busiest U.S. mint facilities during the wheat penny era. Millions of pennies were produced there, but collectors know that not every surviving example remains in such attractive condition after more than 6 decades. Here's where the mystery deepens. Why do some coins survive with sharp details while countless others become heavily worn, scratched, cleaned, or damaged? No one can know the journey each coin has taken. Some may have spent only a short time in circulation before being tucked away in a coin album or forgotten inside a family keepsake box. Others may have passed through hundreds of hands before finally being discovered again years later. That's part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin has traveled through history. Every mark tells a story. Every surviving example carries a journey no document can fully describe. Collectors pay close attention to coins like this because originality matters. Natural surfaces, appealing color, strong details, and minimal wear often attract far more attention than coins that have been harshly cleaned or damaged. Even 2 coins from the same year and mint can have dramatically different collector interest depending on preservation and eye appeal. Now imagine this. A collector walks into a coin show searching for one final wheat penny to complete a high-quality set. They examine dozens of examples before one catches their eye, not because it's flashy, but because it has the originality and pleasing appearance they're looking for. Sometimes the difference between being overlooked and being admired comes down to tiny details visible only after careful inspection. That is why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its age alone. They study the surfaces. They examine the strike. They inspect the lettering. They compare the color. They search for unusual characteristics. They look for originality. And sometimes they discover something remarkable. The 1958 with D. Wheat penny has become especially meaningful because it closes one of the longest-running and most recognizable coin designs in American history. Every collector understands that once the calendar turned to 1959, the famous wheat ears disappeared forever, replaced by an entirely new reverse design. That historical transition gives this date lasting collector significance. According to the information provided for this video, this particular 1958 with D. Wheat penny, described as having a beautiful brown appearance and uncirculated condition, carries an estimated current market value of $167. As with any collectible coin, actual market prices depend on professional authentication, grading, originality, demand, and whether the coin possesses any significant varieties or exceptional qualities. But don't leave just yet. If you think this final year wheat penny is impressive, the coins still ahead become even more mysterious. Some feature fascinating characteristics that many people overlook, while others have stories that continue to excite collectors decades after they were minted. So before you spend another old penny, take a closer look. That ordinary little coin sitting quietly in your pocket, an old piggy bank, or a forgotten family collection could hold far more collector interest than most people ever imagine. And remember, we're only getting started. The next coin takes this treasure hunt even deeper. Coin number 2. Now the treasure hunt takes an unexpected turn. The first coin introduced us to the final chapter of the Wheat Penny series, but this next discovery carries us back to a completely different moment in American history. At first glance, this 1946 Lincoln Wheat penny without a mint mark may seem like nothing more than an old copper cent with a few dark spots and years of honest aging. Most people would glance at it for only a second before dropping it back into a coin jar. But experienced collectors know something important. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins have the most fascinating stories. Take a slow look at this coin. Notice the natural brown surfaces, the scattered black and brown dots across the obverse, and the darker spotting on the reverse. Rather than making the coin look ordinary, these features tell the story of a piece that has traveled through decades of American history. Every tiny mark hints at years spent changing hands, resting in drawers, hiding inside old jars, or waiting quietly in forgotten collections. And that's where the mystery begins. Who was the first person to receive this penny in 1946? Did it buy a newspaper on a cold morning? Did it ride inside a soldier's pocket after returning home from World War II? Did it sit inside a family cash register during one of America's biggest rebuilding periods? No one knows. That mystery is something collectors can never replace. The year 1946 marked the first full year of coin production after the end of World War II. America was entering a new era of hope, rebuilding, and opportunity. Families were growing, businesses were reopening, and millions of wheat pennies continued moving through everyday commerce. Every surviving 1946 wheat penny is a small survivor from that remarkable chapter of American history. Now look closely at the date. You'll notice something missing. There is no mint mark beneath the year. That means this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally produced coins without a mint mark during that era. For many collectors, Philadelphia issues hold special historical significance because they connect directly to the nation's oldest minting tradition. But here's where careful collectors become excited. Not every 1946 Philadelphia wheat penny survived the same way. Many spent decades in heavy circulation until nearly every design detail faded away. Others were damaged, cleaned, polished, bent, or exposed to harsh environmental conditions. Finding examples that still display pleasing detail and attractive originality becomes much more interesting after nearly 80 years. Looking at your coin, Lincoln's portrait remains clearly recognizable, and much of the lettering is still visible despite circulation. The reverse wheat ears continue to show definition, while the natural brown color combines with darker spotting to create the appearance of a coin that has aged naturally over many decades. Based on these photographs alone, it appears consistent with the almost fine condition you described, although an exact grade always requires an in-person examination by a professional grading service. Now imagine this scene. A grandfather passes an old wooden box to his grandchildren. Inside are dozens of wheat pennies collected over many years. Most people would see only old copper coins. A passionate collector, however, would slow down. They would separate each date, study every surface, search every mint mark, inspect every letter, examine every unusual feature. Because they know remarkable discoveries rarely announce themselves. They wait quietly for someone patient enough to notice. That's one of the greatest lessons in coin collecting. The most valuable discovery often begins with curiosity. Not luck, curiosity. Collectors also appreciate coins that retain their natural appearance. Original surfaces, honest circulation wear, and decades of untouched aging often tell a more compelling story than coins that have been heavily cleaned or artificially altered. Every mark becomes part of the coin's unique journey through history. Think about how many millions of pennies have been spent without anyone looking twice. How many family collections were donated or thrown away? How many old coin jars were exchanged at banks without anyone checking the dates? Those questions are exactly what keep collectors searching year after year. Because every overlooked coin carries the possibility of revealing something extraordinary. According to the information provided for this video, this 1946 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, natural black and brown spotting, and almost fine condition is associated with an estimated current market value of $265. 500th actual selling prices for any individual coin depend on professional authentication, grading, originality, demand, and whether it has any significant varieties or exceptional characteristics. But don't relax yet. We've uncovered only the second coin, and the mystery is growing stronger with every reveal. The next wheat penny takes us even deeper into the hidden world of collector treasures, where small details can completely change how a coin is viewed. So keep watching, because the biggest surprise of this treasure hunt may still be waiting just a few coins ahead. Coin number 3. By now, you may already be looking at every old wheat penny a little differently. But don't make the mistake of thinking you've already seen the most interesting discovery. Because the third coin in today's treasure hunt brings us to 1957 Ampere's year that many collectors remember as the calm before one of the biggest design changes in Lincoln cent history. At first glance, this 1957 with D Lincoln wheat penny looks like an ordinary old copper coin. It carries a warm brown appearance, a few brown spots on the reverse, and the honest look of a coin that has survived nearly 7 decades. To most people, it's just another penny. To a collector, it's another chapter of American history waiting to be understood. Hold this coin in your imagination for a moment. Think about everything America experienced while this penny quietly moved from one pocket to another. It may have bought a piece of candy, been dropped into a church donation box, rested inside a child's piggy bank, or disappeared into an old family collection that hasn't been opened for decades. Every journey leaves its mark. Every mark becomes part of the story. And that's exactly why collectors rarely judge a coin by appearance alone. Looking carefully at the photographs, Lincoln's portrait remains well defined, with noticeable detail still visible throughout the hair, cheek, jawline, and coat. The lettering across "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date appears sharp and easy to read. On the reverse, the famous wheat ears remain attractive, while the scattered brown spots blend naturally with the coin's aged copper surfaces. These characteristics give the coin an appealing vintage look that many collectors appreciate. Based on the images provided, the coin appears consistent with the very fine condition you described, although only professional in-hand grading can determine an official grade. Now notice something else. Just beneath the date sits the tiny D mint mark. That single letter tells us this wheat penny was struck at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln cents were produced during the 1950s. Even though many examples were originally minted, collectors understand that time has dramatically reduced the number of attractive survivors with pleasing originality and strong eye appeal. Here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. The year 1957 was the second to last year before the famous wheat penny design disappeared forever. Only one more year remained before the Lincoln Memorial replaced the iconic wheat ears in 1959. Because of that historical timing, every 1957 wheat penny represents one of the final opportunities to own a coin from the classic reverse design that Americans had carried since 1909. Imagine standing in a grocery store during 1957. The cashier hands back a few pennies in change. One of them is this very coin. No one pauses. No one imagines that decades later, collectors would carefully study every tiny detail. It simply continues its journey. Year after year, pocket after pocket, generation after generation. Until one day, someone finally stops and says, "Wait a minute, this one deserves a closer look." That's how many collecting stories begin. Not with expensive auctions, not with dramatic discoveries, but with curiosity. Curiosity turns an ordinary coin into an extraordinary search. Experienced collectors examine coins like this from every possible angle. They look for strong strikes, original surfaces, appealing color, die varieties, unusual characteristics, and overall preservation. Even small differences can make one coin far more desirable than another of the same date and mint mark. And that is why patience matters. The greatest discoveries are rarely obvious. They're hidden in the smallest details. A tiny mint mark, an unusual surface, a remarkably preserved design, or simply a coin that survived when so many others did not. Looking at the reverse of your coin, the wheat stalks remain nicely outlined despite years of age, while the lettering across 1 cent and United States of America remains bold and readable. The natural brown toning and darker spotting create a classic appearance that reflects decades of careful survival rather than a freshly altered surface. According to the information provided for this video, this 1957 with D. Lincoln wheat penny, described as having brown spots on the reverse, a beautiful appearance, and very fine condition, carries an estimated current market value of $172,400. As always, actual market prices depend on professional authentication, grading, originality, collector demand, and any noteworthy varieties or exceptional characteristics. But here's the exciting part. We're only halfway through today's countdown. If these first 3 wheat pennies have already revealed how much history can hide inside a single cent, just wait until you see what's coming next. The remaining coins continue building toward the biggest discovery of the entire video, and the final reveal could completely change the way you search through old pennies forever. So don't look away now, because the greatest hidden treasure of today's collection may still be waiting just ahead. Coin number 4. Now the countdown becomes even more exciting. The first 3 wheat pennies took us through the final years of the classic design and the fascinating post-war era, but this next coin carries us back to 1939 Ampere's time, when America was standing on the edge of a completely different chapter in history. At first glance, this 1939 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark appears simple and ordinary. It has a natural brown layer, honest circulation wear, and the classic appearance of a coin that has quietly survived for generations. But this is exactly where experienced collectors become careful, because some of the most interesting wheat pennies are the ones that look the least dramatic. Imagine finding this coin inside a forgotten envelope tucked away in an old family desk. No bright shine, no flashy appearance, just an old brown penny that has been waiting silently for decades. Most people would overlook it instantly. A serious collector would do the opposite. They would slow down. They would study every detail. They would examine every letter. They would inspect every surface. Because coins from the late 1930s often carry a historical atmosphere that modern coins simply cannot recreate. Look closely at the coin in your photographs. Lincoln's portrait remains clearly visible, with noticeable details still present in the hair, forehead, cheek, and coat. The lettering around "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date is strong enough to give the coin a pleasing vintage appearance. On the reverse, the famous wheat ears remain recognizable, while the natural brown toning gives the coin the look of a genuine long-term survivor rather than a recently altered piece. Based on the images alone, the coin appears consistent with the fine condition you described, although an exact grade can only be determined through professional examination. Now notice something important. There is no mint mark beneath the date. That means this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the historic mint that produced many of America's most important coin issues. Philadelphia wheat pennies often attract special attention because they connect directly to the original minting tradition that began generations earlier. But here is the mystery that keeps collectors searching. How did this particular coin survive? Did it spend years inside a child's coin collection? Was it saved by someone who appreciated old pennies? Did it remain hidden inside a family jar while the world changed around it? Think about everything this coin has lived through. World War II, the post-war boom, the rise of television, the space race, the digital age. Through all of those decades, this small copper cent continued to exist, quietly carrying its place in American history. That is something no newly minted coin can ever duplicate. Collectors are often drawn to coins with natural originality. A genuine brown surface that has developed gradually over many decades can be far more appealing than an artificially bright coin that has been heavily cleaned or polished. Originality tells a story. Every spot, every tone change, every area of wear, every surviving detail, all of it becomes part of the coin's identity. Now imagine a collector building a complete wheat penny set. They already own the famous dates. They already own the key rarities. But they are still searching for a 1939 Philadelphia example with pleasing eye appeal and honest originality. They pass over dozens of coins before one finally stands out. Not because it is the rarest, but because it feels authentic, because it still carries the character of its era. That is one of the secrets of coin collecting that many beginners never realize. Collectors do not always chase the brightest coin. They often chase the coin with the strongest story. Looking at the reverse of your coin, the wheat stalks remain visible and balanced, while 1 cent and United States of America continue to show clear definition despite circulation wear. The natural brown color creates a classic wheat penny appearance that many collectors find attractive because it reflects decades of genuine aging. According to the information provided for this video, this 1939 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, a brown layer, and fine condition carries an estimated current market value of $290. As with all collectible coins, actual market value depends on professional authentication, grading, originality, collector demand, and any significant varieties or exceptional characteristics the coin may possess. But here is what makes today's countdown so dangerous for anyone who has an old coin jar at home. We still have 2 coins remaining. And if these first 4 wheat pennies have already shown how easily history can hide inside an ordinary-looking cent, the final discoveries become even more intriguing. The next coin pushes this treasure hunt into even deeper collector territory, and the last reveal could become the crown jewel of the entire video. So keep watching carefully, because the coin that could completely change this entire countdown may be waiting just ahead. Coin number 5. Now we're entering the final stretch of today's treasure hunt, and the discoveries are becoming even more compelling. This 1942 with D. Lincoln wheat penny may not shout for attention, but that's exactly what makes it so intriguing. At first glance, it looks like an old copper cent with a light brown appearance, honest wear, and the quiet character of a coin that has traveled through countless hands. Most people would spend it without a second thought. Collectors rarely make that mistake, because sometimes the most unforgettable discoveries begin with the simplest-looking coin. Pause for a moment and imagine holding this penny on the day it was first released in 1942. America was living through one of the most significant periods in its history. Every coin circulating during that time witnessed a nation facing enormous change. This small wheat penny became part of everyday life, passing through grocery stores, train stations, post offices, family businesses, and countless pockets, silently collecting history with every exchange. That alone gives this coin a remarkable sense of historical connection. Now take a closer look at the photographs. Lincoln's portrait remains clear despite decades of circulation. The lettering around "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date is still readable, allowing the coin to preserve much of its original design. On the reverse, the famous wheat ears remain visible, while the light brown layer and natural aging create the appearance of a genuine long-term survivor rather than a recently altered coin. The overall look reflects exactly what many collectors enjoy seeing: honest originality. Based on the images provided, the coin appears consistent with the old condition you described, although only professional grading can determine its official condition and authenticity. Now notice the tiny detail beneath the date. The small D mint mark tells us this wheat penny was struck at the Denver Mint. That single letter transforms an ordinary-looking cent into a specific historical issue with its own place in the Lincoln wheat penny series. Think about how incredible that is. A tiny mint mark no larger than a few millimeters can become one of the first things an experienced collector searches for. That's because every mint tells a different production story. Every date tells a different historical story. And every surviving coin tells a different personal story. Imagine an experienced collector opening a small envelope marked only with the words, "Old Pennies." Inside are dozens of copper cents collected by someone many years ago. Most are common. Some are heavily worn. But then A 1942 with D wheat penny appears. The collector doesn't rush. They pick it up carefully, rotate it under the light, inspect the surfaces, study the lettering, examine the wheat ears, look closely at the mint mark, because they understand something that casual observers often miss. Every coin deserves a careful inspection before any conclusions are made. That patient approach has led to countless exciting discoveries over the years. Looking closely at your coin, the reverse displays balanced wheat stalks with readable lettering across 1 cent and United States of America. The natural light brown color reflects decades of aging, while the circulation marks add character rather than distracting from the coin's historical appearance. Collectors often appreciate coins that have aged naturally. They know that originality cannot be recreated. Every tiny scratch, every soft tone, every sign of careful survival becomes part of the coin's identity, and that identity is what separates one coin from another. Now ask yourself something. How many old pennies have quietly disappeared into coin-counting machines over the last 50 years? How many family collections were inherited without anyone taking the time to examine each date? How many hidden stories have already been lost forever? Those questions continue inspiring collectors to search through old jars, estate collections, flea markets, and forgotten boxes. Because every overlooked wheat penny carries the possibility of revealing something unexpected. According to the information provided for this video, this 1942 with D Lincoln wheat penny, described as having a light brown layer on the reverse and old condition, carries an estimated current market value of $275. Actual market value depends on professional authentication, grading, originality, collector demand, and whether the coin has any notable varieties or exceptional characteristics. And now, we've reached the point where every remaining reveal matters even more. Only one wheat penny remains before today's countdown is complete. If you thought these earlier discoveries were fascinating, don't go anywhere, because the final coin has been saved for last for a reason. Sometimes the greatest treasure isn't the first one you see. It's the one waiting at the very end of the hunt. Coin number 6. We've reached the final reveal of today's countdown. If you've stayed with me from the very beginning, you've already traveled through decades of American history, uncovered forgotten wheat pennies, and seen how ordinary-looking coins can carry extraordinary collector stories. But every great treasure hunt saves one final discovery for the end. And this 1956 with D Lincoln wheat penny is exactly that. At first glance, it doesn't demand attention. It isn't covered in bright luster. It doesn't sparkle under the light. Instead, it carries something many collectors appreciate even more, a natural appearance shaped by time itself. Its warm copper color, scattered dark brown dots, and honest circulation tell the story of a coin that wasn't created to become a collectible. It simply survived long enough for someone to recognize its place in history. Now imagine this scene. A family is cleaning out an old wooden cabinet that has been sitting untouched for decades. Inside one drawer sits a small cloth pouch tied with faded string. When it's opened, a handful of old wheat pennies spills onto the table. Most people would see nothing more than old cents. But one coin immediately catches a collector's eye. A 1956 with D wheat penny. Not because it shines the brightest, but because it still carries the originality and character that decades can never replace. Looking closely at the photographs, Lincoln's portrait remains clearly visible despite circulation. The facial features, coat lines, and lettering continue to show pleasing detail. Around the rim, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" remain readable, while the date 1956 and the small D mint mark stand out clearly beneath it. Turn the coin over, and the famous wheat ears still frame the reverse design beautifully. The words 1 cent and United States of America remain bold enough to remind us why this classic design became one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The natural brown color, combined with the darker spots visible across the surfaces, gives the coin the appearance of a genuine survivor rather than a heavily altered example. Based on the photographs alone, the coin appears consistent with the circulated condition you described. However, an exact grade or authenticity determination always requires professional examination in hand. Now think about the year 1956. Only 2 more years remained before the famous wheat penny design would disappear forever. Millions of Americans carried these coins every day without realizing they were witnessing the closing years of an iconic chapter in U.S. coinage. When the Lincoln Memorial Reverse arrived in 1959, an era quietly came to an end. That historical timing is one reason many collectors enjoy adding attractive late-date wheat pennies to their collections. And then there's the tiny D mint mark. Small enough to overlook, important enough to inspect every single time. Experienced collectors never ignore mint marks because they help tell the story of where a coin began its journey. A single letter can connect a coin to a specific mint, a specific production year, and a unique place in collecting history. That's why serious collectors develop one habit above all others. They never rush. Every coin receives a careful look. Every date is checked. Every mint mark is confirmed. Every surface is examined. Because history often hides in the smallest details. Imagine how many wheat pennies have already disappeared forever. Some were lost. Some were melted. Some were damaged beyond recognition. Others passed through coin-counting machines without anyone ever reading the date. Yet coins like this continue to survive, quietly reminding us that history doesn't always live inside museums. Sometimes it lives inside a 1-cent coin. According to the information provided for this video, this 1956 with D. Lincoln wheat penny, described as having dark brown dots, a beautiful appearance, and circulated condition, carries an estimated current market value of 185. Any collectible coin, the actual market value depends on professional authentication, grading, originality, collector demand, and whether the coin has any noteworthy varieties or exceptional characteristics. And with that, our wheat penny treasure hunt comes to an end. 6 coins, 6 different stories, 6 reminders that the smallest pieces of history are often the easiest to overlook. So before you spend another old penny, take one extra moment to look at the date, the mint mark, and the overall condition. You never know when an ordinary coin could reveal an extraordinary story or become the beginning of your own collecting journey. If you enjoyed today's countdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Which of these 6 wheat pennies surprised you the most? And have you ever found an old wheat penny in your own pocket change or family collection? Because the next hidden treasure could already be waiting for its moment to be discovered.